This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Well, hey there and happy Thursday. Welcome to episode 46 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to have you. Today, I'm welcoming back for the third and final time, for now, I'm sure I'll see her again very soon, Candice Coppola from Jubilee Events and Jubilee Events Caribbean. This is Candice's third appearance on the podcast. She has been such a wealth of information for myself, for my listeners. She is an over 10-year veteran of the industry, and she's also an author. She published The White Dress in Color, Inspiration for the Modern Bride, with two of her amazing friends. She is a prolific speaker. She's a sought-after educator and mentor, and I was just so grateful to get to know her early in my podcasting journey, and even more grateful for her to say, hey, I'm willing to come on the show 3 times and give you all of these, just pour into you and your listeners, and with all of the knowledge that I've gained over the last decade. So Candice, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much I've appreciated and just how grateful I am to have your friendship and, your mentorship. You're certainly someone I consider a mentor. So thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Today, Candice is going to tell us all about conferences, retreats, and workshops. They are cropping up everywhere, and you have a lot of choices. There's a lot of choices now sorry, that was my phone. There's a lot of choices now of where you can go, what you can spend your money on, and we're going to talk about that today. How you can be discerning on which ones you choose to spend your money on, how you can set goals before you even go to the conference to make sure that the conference has kind of an ROI, you get that return on investment. Because let's face it, a conference is an investment. And I do agree that there are a lot of ways to look at a conference, and you can say that, well, if you get XYZ amount of business, then the conference paid for itself. And that is so true. I don't discount that at all. But I think we can all agree that at the end of the day, you do have to buy a plane ticket, right? Like you do have to spend $1,000, sometimes more on a ticket. You do have to have a hotel. So let's just all agree that at some point it does cost money. Yes, there are ways to make it pay for itself, but it is an investment nonetheless. And so setting those goals prior to attending the conference, and Candice will really dig into this, can help you actually, get that return on investment that you're thinking about. I'm really excited about this. I myself have been kind of doing my own personal test of conferences and what I would like to attend this year and beyond. Am I more interested in larger conferences, or am I more interested in more intimate experiences where I'm actually hands-on doing work? And I haven't decided yet. I think they definitely both have their place. I have enjoyed both of those types of conferences immensely, and I'm looking forward to attending a few more this year in 2017. And I'd like to know where you're going. Where are you headed? Let me know in the comments on at shecreatesbusinesspodcast.com/blog/episode 46. Thank you so much to Podcasting for Creatives for sponsoring this course. Podcasting for Creatives is my new podcasting course launching on March 20th. If you have ever thought to yourself, I have always wanted to start a podcast, but I am just not sure what to do. I don't know how to create one. I don't know how to publish one, and I don't know how to grow a podcast. That is exactly what you're going to learn in Podcasting for Creatives. As I mentioned, I'm launching on March 20th, but if you sign up for the early access list over at bit.ly/let's podcast, you will get early access to the course. I am going to open up the course to the email list only. So you'll have first dibs on the purchase, which I think is kind of fun because I'm offering the first 20 buyers a 1-hour one-on-one free consultation with me, because I think I've said this before on the podcast. Sometimes you just want to sit down and talk out your ideas and talk out your thoughts and have some insight, right? With just one-on-one coffee with somebody where you can really dive deep into a topic and get their advice without paying $1,000 for a coaching call. Am I right? So I think that's a super offer. I'm really excited to get to know more people one-on-one. Ever since starting the podcast 7 months ago with literally no following, and then growing it to thousands of downloads, over 1,000 followers on Instagram, making countless friendships that I just cannot tell you how grateful I've been. The podcast is now a cornerstone of my business. And if that sounds like something you might be interested in, come on over to bit.ly/let's podcast. And once the course launches, you'll be able to see the detailed modules and decide if it's for you or not, right? It may not be, and that's okay too. We can still be friends, and we can still be podcast buddies. Anyway, without further ado, let's go to the show. It's a great one, and here we are with Candice Coppola from Jubilee Events. Hey guys, welcome to She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts, and today I'm so excited and kind of sad because I'm back for my third and final, at the moment, interview with Candice Coppola from Event Jubilee, Jubilee Events. Welcome back, Candice.
Thank you. I'm sad too, actually. It didn't dawn on me that this is our final podcast for now. But yeah, that is kind of sad. I'm sad we won't be talking every other week.
I know, me too. Right when I hit record, I was like, oh, shoot. So if you are just joining us, this is the last episode of a 3-episode arc that we did with Candice. And we did it because Candice is just a true veteran and a true just an influencer in this industry. And so if you don't know the backstory, I contacted her and asked her if she might be interested in coming on the show. I had so many ideas because she has just done so much in her business these last 10 years. And she graciously agreed to talk about all of the topics. And I couldn't say no. I wanted that so badly. So the first topic was mentoring in the wedding industry. That was back in episode 19. So take a listen to that. You don't have to listen to these in order, so stay with us today. But episode 19 is Candice's first episode about mentoring in the wedding industry. Episode 25 of the show came out on Tuesday, December 13th, and that's going to be all about publishing a book in the wedding industry. Candice has done so. She's currently writing her second book, and she has a lot to offer in that episode. I was taking notes. It was so informative. And then today's final episode of this particular series is all about conferences and retreats and workshops in our industry. And then we're going to get into being a speaker and having kind of a speaking career in those conferences, retreats, and workshops in our industry, and maybe even outside of this industry specifically. So Candice has a lot of knowledge about this. She's a prolific speaker, and we're just going to jump right in.
Awesome.
So Candice, will you tell us kind of, in your opinion, why are conferences, or, I hate to say conferences because that kind of gives off the impression that there has to be like some huge 100-person event, but why are like conferences and retreats and workshops and even just in-person events really important in our industry?
Well, for a few reasons, I think. When I look back at all the conferences I've attended in my career, and I started my business in 2007, and the first conference I went to was in 2008. Mm-hmm. The first thing that comes to mind is all the relationships I was able to create at those conferences that still live today. Some of my closest friends in life are people who I met at a wedding-related conference. So first and foremost, no matter where you are in your business, if you're looking to sort of expand your network and meet new people, a conference will absolutely connect you to a variety of different entrepreneurs in the wedding industry, and sometimes not even in the industry, who have something to offer or could have something to offer your business. So that's the first reason I think people should attend conferences, retreats, seminars, workshops. Mm-hmm. Another reason is just the educational values. So aside from networking, there's a lot to be learned at a conference, depending on the topics that are being discussed. But there are a lot of things that I learned at conferences. And going back to that first conference I ever attended, there was a speaker, Sasha Souza Events. She's located in California. She is a true veteran of the industry and a tastemaker. And Sasha sort of revolutionized how I structured my business and pricing.
Oh, wow.
It was really, really incredible. She opened my eyes to how I was pricing things wrong and how I could be sort of doubling, really, my revenue by using a little bit of a different pricing structure. And I implemented that, and my business, literally, my revenue doubled that year. So from a educational standpoint and tools that you learn to work in and on your business, conferences and retreats can be really beneficial.
Absolutely. Where do you stand on this, like the size of in-person events? I'll say. Do you have a personal preference? Do you like to go to bigger events or maybe smaller events, or has that actually evolved over the years?
Yeah, it has. I find that conferences now, there's a lot of demand. There's a lot of people who want to go to specific conferences, so their size has grown. Mm-hmm. But there's something to be said about a more intimate experience. Yes. I think that you're able to really network and create relationships with people in a smaller setting, and just having access to speakers themselves. When you're at a conference with maybe 100 people, you have a greater chance to have some face-to-face time with someone who you admire or whose brain you want to pick at a conference, rather than a conference of 300 or 400 people. So I think it depends on the conference itself, and you should look at a conference for the content and the inspiration and what it has to offer. Mm-hmm. But if you do well in smaller settings and more one-on-one, you may want to look into attending a conference that meets that need for you.
Oh, yeah. Good point. And I wonder, too, if maybe where you are in your business, such as, how long you've been in business or kind of what your specific goals are maybe for that year. Do you think that plays into which conferences you should pick in that year?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean,
okay.
First things first, as when you decide that you want to invest in some education and networking, you should define what your goals are, what you want to achieve out of that investment. So okay. When you are looking at conferences to attend, it's best to have goals in place that you want to achieve. If you don't do that, then you're going to find yourself maybe disappointed by what you hear at that conference. It might not have been the right fit for you, or perhaps you didn't structure your time in that day or 2 or 3 days that you were there to achieve your goals. So first things first is write down what you want to get out of a conference. And I think some common things that people want to get out of a conference is further insight on how they can manage their business, obviously make more money, learn something that they're unfamiliar with. So perhaps you're struggling with SEO or social media marketing, and you want to attend a conference where one speaker is renowned in that area. That might be a good thing for you to attend for that simple purpose. But mm-hmm. having those goals and having an understanding of what you want to get out of a conference will guide you into what conference might be the right fit for you. I've been disappointed in attending conferences in the past because I didn't clearly outline what I wanted to get out of that conference. Right. And again, in outlining that, you're also able to step into that experience with what you want to achieve in mind. So you know who you want to connect with, what maybe friendships you want to cultivate or foster, what speakers you want to have a sidebar conversation with. And in some instances, you might attend a conference just for the networking opportunities. A lot can happen out of a conference in just networking. Take Engage, for example. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with Engaging Summits, this is a conference put on every year, now 3 times a year, by Rebecca Grinnells and Catherine Arce. And they're veterans of the wedding industry. They literally invented the Disney wedding. And they've been doing this conference. They put on 19 Engage conferences, which is pretty incredible. And their conference is geared towards the luxury market. So the folks who go to that conference are in that upper level clientele bracket. And the networking experiences are really bar none. You have anywhere from 3 to 350 of the most elite wedding professionals in the world in one room, discussing business, trading information, making deals, and agreeing to work together. And I've seen firsthand for myself and then also my peers what can come out of that conference in just a networking capacity.
I was just thinking about Engage because you recently wrote a blog about Engage Summit. And,
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and really what that specific conference has been able to bring into your business, into your life.
Yeah, it's been pretty tremendous for me. I mean, I've gotten so much out of it personally and professionally. Mm-hmm. And so I felt really compelled to share that with people, unsolicited, of course. I just was thinking about and reflecting on all the gifts that it had given me, and I wanted to be able to share that. And I know I'm not alone in that. There are so many attendees who return to that conference and go to all 3 every year, and it's a very sizable investment for their business, but they're dedicated to going to every single one because of the camaraderie, the fun they have, the people they meet, and of course what it's done for their business.
That Engage looks like an absolutely phenomenal conference. They just had their last one for the year for 2016 at Sea Island, I believe.
Yeah.
And I was following along a local planner, local to Colorado, Kaluna Events, who's out of Boulder. They were there, and then Jenny Tai from Imani Events, who's a past guest of this show. I followed along kind of both of those people, and I was like, wow.
I know.
It is a production.
Yeah, it is a production. With that conference, the investment is so high because the experience level is so high. You walk into that conference and you're inspired from the moment you're picked up at the airport until the parting gift that you're given when you leave. And it's a way for us, especially us wedding planners and designers, to up our game in the experience level that we provide our clients on a one-on-one basis. And then also in our events, what our clients' guest experience in those events. So that's why Engage is such a multifaceted conference. But I hear you. Actually, one of my team members in Connecticut went to Engage, and I had serious FOMO, like serious FOMO.
I was just like, why am I not there? Oh, that's right, because I am not in the luxury wedding market yet. Yeah. And I was like, I would have sold some stuff to go there.
No, trust me, it's painful when you can't attend and you see all your Engage friends there having a great time. But it makes the times that you do go that much better because you're not there all the time. So
such a good point.
Yeah, it's a great conference, and I recommend Engage for someone who not is just starting out. I think when you've been in business for a few years, 2 or 3 years, and you've got your footing, and you can certainly afford to invest in the conference, I think it's a great fit for upping your game and sort of pushing yourself to the next level. But as anyone will tell you, you need to be ready to go to that conference, both in your business and then just also in your goals and what you want to achieve. You need to be ready because you want to make the best use of your time there. And that can be really attributed to any conference, no matter how big or small.
Such a good point. Well, and I want to know more about what the kind of conferences or specifically the conferences you recommend for wedding professionals. But I had a couple of questions about networking, because you mentioned that, at these conferences, if you want to network, if you want to meet new people, if you want to, collaborate and do deals, could you give us 2 tips in your experience on how we can really network well with other attendees?
Sure, that's a great question. I think first you should just be yourself. And if you're an introvert, you might find networking a little more challenging, so you'll need to push yourself. But first things first, when you're networking, just be yourself. And try to connect with people on a personal, human level and not just on a business level. And second of all, approach networking from the position of what can I do for the person that I'm talking to, rather than what can the person I'm talking to do for me. So when you flip it that way, you're coming from a place of giving rather than receiving. And I think that's where networking fails for a lot of people, is people step into those scenarios and say, oh my gosh, I met Candice Coppola, what can she do for me? Rather than, I'm talking to Candice Coppola, I wonder if there's some way that I can help her with what she's struggling with. So those are my 2 tips for successful networking.
I appreciate what you said about, if you're an introvert, you still need to network and you might need to push yourself a little bit harder. And also connecting on a personal level rather than, such as do you have kids? Where do they go to school? What are they interested in? Instead of oh, what's your business?
Exactly.
How many events do you plan a year?
Yeah, you really want to get to know people for who they are. I mean, that's what creates bonds and real relationships and friendships. And I can say in my business, the people that I refer to just for clients are people who I know very well. They're people whose kids' birthday parties I've gone to. I've spent holidays with them. I've, cried with them in hard times and celebrated them in good times. And that's because we created a real relationship, a real friendship. And friendships go a long way, a really long way.
Yes. That's so true. I wonder, similarly to connecting with other attendees, as a speaker yourself at many events, and then, as an attendee who may want to, chat with a speaker whose topic you were really interested in, as you mentioned earlier, do you have a suggestion for ways that attendees can connect with speakers?
Sure. So being a speaker can sometimes be really overwhelming because
Mm-hmm.
everybody sort of wants to have a piece of your time. So if you're looking to connect with a speaker and they seem overwhelmed, try not to overwhelm them further. Maybe take a step back or find another opportunity to connect with them. It'll go a longer way in getting FaceTime with them. But if you're looking to connect with a speaker, I would just walk up and strike up a conversation and ask if they can give 5 minutes of their time whenever it's convenient for them during the conference to talk to you about something. And if you also approach a speaker in a way of just being open and friendly and genuinely just wanting to get to know them as a person, you might find that the two of you sort of hit it off like a house on fire, and before you know it, you are actually have a direct access to that speaker just beyond the conference, but you've maintained a friendship, and you're able to connect with them and contact them beyond just the time frame in which you were together at that conference. So first things first is just be confident, walk up to a speaker, ask if they wouldn't mind giving you a few minutes of their time to talk about something that's important to you. And when speakers are invited to speak at conferences, they're invited to network with all the attendees. And we're just regular folks, you know what I mean? We're just people who are at certain positions in our business and can speak on it as an expert, but we go through the same struggles and the same business problems as everyone else does. So we're not in some sort of elite category. We're there to learn too. And if if this person you want to talk to seems a little bit overwhelmed with a lot of requests or a lot of people, just give it some time and maybe find another opportunity to sort of approach them when they're not being inundated, because that can be really difficult. Sort of everybody wants a piece of you. I imagine that's what it must feel like when you're a parent and you have kids and you're a mom. I don't know, I don't have kids, but that's sort of what it reminds me of, is like you're trying to find a quiet moment for yourself when everybody wants to talk to you.
Oh my gosh, girl. Yes. Yes, you just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Well, and I would imagine that your two tips about just networking in general could also go a long way with a speaker. I mean, just be yourself.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to put them up on a pedestal, because that may
No.
feel uncomfortable. And then also, approach them as, what can I do for this person? Even if it's maybe bringing them a coffee because they're so busy, they haven't had a drink or whatever, instead of like, okay, what can I glean, or like, what can I get from them as a influencer or industry leader?
Exactly right. And as I mentioned, as a speaker, we're invited to not only speak on a topic where we have expertise, but also to talk to attendees and add to the overall conference experience and sit down one-on-one and talk to you. And many of the conferences that I've spoken at, I've done one-on-one mentoring sessions, and I've sort of asked the organizers if they would be open to doing that, because I really believe in one-on-one mentoring sessions. The last conference I spoke at, the Coterie Retreat, I did some one-on-one mentoring sessions during the conference, whether it was while someone else was speaking or in certain downtime areas. And I got to connect with a lot of really great entrepreneurs who had a lot of questions about writing a book. So that was great.
Oh gosh, I bet that's really special, because probably during those mentoring sessions, people are telling you, kind of their dreams, like for writing a book or whatever. So you get to hear like that really heart stuff,
Yeah, it's great. I love talking one-on-one with people and helping people and figuring out ways to make their business better. So I really love to do that kind of stuff at a conference.
I think that we kind of talked offline about this a little bit. There are a lot of conferences and workshops really popping up in the last, I would say, probably like 3 years. A lot. And I think that can be great. And I can also think, as a person, for me, someone who's looking to invest in quite a few conferences, just because I am newer to the wedding industry. So I would like to meet people and expand my network. It can be a little overwhelming to know which conferences are the right ones to go to, maybe which ones to stay away from. So I wonder if you could kind of expand on that thought a little bit. So how can we discern which conferences or workshops or retreats are right for us?
Sure. So first things first, take a look at where you are in your business. If you're new, then you're going to want to attend a conference that is catered towards people who are just starting out or in 1 or 2 years of their journey as being a business owner. You may not want to attend a more advanced conference that's meant for people who've been in business 3, 5+ years. So first, take a look at where you are in your business, and then research conferences that are geared towards attendees in similar areas of their business and similar time frames in their business. Number 2 is take a look at who's organizing the conference. Do you know this person? Have you heard of this person? And what are their credentials? I think that's really important. Not all conferences are created equal. Not all people who create conferences may be qualified to create a conference. So you want to take a look at who's organizing the conference and just make sure they're on the up and up. And then next, I think what draws most attendees to a conference is the speakers. So take a look at who is speaking at the conference. What are their backgrounds? Certainly there'll be a bio about them on a conference's website. But do a little work and find out who they are and what they have to offer and what topics are being discussed. So if you are a wedding planner, you may not find a lot of value in going to a photographer's conference or a conference where a lot of speakers are talking about photography, and vice versa. So you want to take a look at the topics and make sure there are things, in the majority, not all things are going to apply to you, but most of them are topics that you're interested in learning about. And further, some conferences provide a little bit of business info and a lot of bit of business inspiration. So if you're looking to invest in a conference that is like hardcore business, tangible knowledge, things that somebody's going to tell you about that you can immediately apply to your business and see results, you're going to want to look for conferences that cater to that rather than conferences that have a lot of speakers who talk aspirationally and inspirationally, which is great. But if you're looking for hardcore tasks and facts and things to do in your business, that might not be the best conference for you. If you are in business for 3-4+ years, there are not too many conferences that cater to a seasoned business owner or someone who's been in business for a while, unfortunately. But my friend Michelle from Sage Wedding Pros puts on a great conference once a year for veterans and people who are more seasoned in the industry, and it's called Be Sage. And I highly, highly recommend it. Michelle is a brilliant person. She's been in the industry a long time, and she's dedicated to information and tasks rather than aspiration and inspiration. She's really dedicated into giving business owners tools and ways to transform their business. So that's one recommendation on a conference if you're looking for a little more meat on the bone of information.
Michelle was on a podcast that I listened to. And I did a podcast about my favorite episodes, and she was one of them. She's brilliant.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's called Office Talk with Annette Stepanyan, and she was on that. Yes, and that was a great episode.
Yeah, Michelle is brilliant, and she's all about the numbers, which I love. She's like, show me the numbers because that's what matters here. She's all about numbers and finances and accounting and projecting, all those uncomfortable things we creative people don't want to talk about.
Right.
She's all about those things, and she puts on a conference that brings that information to the attendees, which is really, really important. She's awesome.
You're right. And it's very rare, as you said. There's not a lot of conferences out there for people who've been in business longer than, maybe 2 or 3 years. Or even if you are just starting, like there's people who would probably like to have that tactical information, that strategic,
for sure.
You know what I mean? They don't just want to be like, you can do it.
Well, exactly. And, again, a lot of conferences are aspirational and inspirational and not information. So I'd love to see more conferences and retreats that focus on business building and tools and how to maintain a team of employees and, all the uncomfortable stuff that we sometimes overlook in business, but help entrepreneurs to be successful at those things. Rather than sort of craft workshops and things like that. But all those other conferences do have a place.
Yes.
So if you're looking to be inspired, if you're feeling crappy and you're just, not inspired right now or you need motivation, attending an inspirational conference will hopefully push you out of that funk and get you to go back towards all your goals and what you want to do. And all of us need that every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the workshops, one workshop in particular that I love is the sketchbook series where, Mary, who is the owner of that conference, and she's a wonderful artist, goes around the country and teaches wedding professionals how to sketch, design. So if you're a cake designer and you can't draw, you can now draw, ideas for your clients on their cakes. Or if you're a wedding planner or designer and you want to be able to show clients an artistic rendering of a design idea, you can go to her course and learn more. It's got rave reviews, which is another thing we'll talk about. It's got rave reviews, and she's really passionate about it. And that's a great sort of arts and crafts conference where you will come out of it with a skill that you could use in your business.
Oh, that's smart. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's cool. And fun.
Really awesome.
Okay, let's talk about reviews. So
Yes.
I think sometimes it can actually be hard to find a good, sampling of reviews.
Yes. That's a good way to put it.
Yes, a good sampling of reviews from conferences. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, a conference is always only going to point out the most glowing reviews of its conference. Any critical reviews they wouldn't publish. And you might have to look a little harder to see if there's been any criticism of a well-known conference, just to make sure it's the right fit for you. But typically, if a conference has been going on for a long time, like Engage, 19 Engages, there is obviously something there that really works, especially since 50% of the attendees are return attendees. They've already been to one. So that's one way to sort of vet a conference based on what the attendees think of it, is how many return, and do they just treat it like a love mark and just go out and tell everybody about it and how great it is and try to get other people to go. But sometimes you have to do a little bit of investigative work. Ask around. If you know someone who attended a conference last year and you're looking to attend it this year, whether you saw them on Instagram attend it or Facebook, or maybe you chatted about it briefly, ask them what their honest opinion was. Confidential, of course, but did they get what they wanted out of it? How was it run? Was it smooth? Was it enjoyable? Did they benefit? Was the investment worth what they invested? And see what they say. But finding, reviews for conferences can be a little challenging. There are other mentors like myself who endorse conferences and will say that this is a good conference. They won't say what is a bad conference, but they'll endorse really productive conferences. So you can check on industry experts and see what conferences they might endorse.
Oh, that's a good thing. Well, and if you're asking yourself, how will I find these attendees? Many conferences now create their own hashtag for their conference. And so you can easily search those hashtags on Instagram. And like Candice said, contact those people individually. I mean, people love to give their opinion, especially if it's something, someone may just be like, oh, it was great, but then there's others who will like, oh, well, this person is really seeking me out kind of as as an advisor. And so you'll get some really great feedback. And so that's a very easy way to kind of find attendees of those conferences.
For sure.
And the social world is so open now. No one's going to be like, why are you talking to me?
Agreed. And you really should do that investigative work. Like, you should do a little bit of research on the conference producer, the speakers, and the conference itself, if it's been produced more than once, by asking around. I mean, this is your money we're talking about, and conferences based on today's price are much more expensive than they were when I attended my first conference in 2008. So it's a really big investment, and you have to make sure that you're investing your dollars wisely in your business no matter what it is, but especially for this, because they have a tendency to disappoint if you don't research them, don't know what kind of conference you're attending, and if you don't set your goals for what you want to achieve coming out of that experience.
Absolutely. Okay, I have a question. This is kind of a hard question to ask, but I think that I'm sure there's someone out there who has felt this way. Yeah. Well, what do you do if you have been really disappointed in an in-person event that you have attended?
That's a great question. I think honesty is the best policy, and I don't mean going on your blog and saying, wow, I attended Candice's conference and it totally sucked. I mean coming to Candice and saying, Candice, I was an attendee at your conference. I really appreciate the time that you took into planning this conference, and I have some feedback for you if you'd be open to hearing it. And, of course, me reading that will feel a little crushed that obviously the feedback you're providing is critical, but if the organizer cares, they're going to want to hear what you have to say. So first things first, if you're disappointed, take some time to compose your thoughts and approach the organizer and ask them if they'd be open to hearing some feedback from you on how to make the conference better. If you feel like you've been completely robbed, if you feel like a snake oil salesman has come and sold you something and taken your money and you've got nothing in return, then perhaps warning other professionals about that conference would be a good idea, just so that nobody makes that mistake, again. But if there's hiccups in a conference, or if there's just some things that didn't go well, or you were disappointed in certain areas, the best thing to do is just to approach the organizer and share your candid thoughts, because we as entrepreneurs are sort of in a bubble sometimes, and we don't necessarily see our mistakes, or we think other people don't notice them, or we hope they are not noticed. We all need critical feedback on what we're doing well, and obviously we need praise for what we do well, but critical feedback on what we're sort of missing the mark on. So I am always one to give people critical feedback if they're open to it, and I encourage anybody listening here, if you have an experience like Kinsey described, then I would approach the organizer and see if they'd be willing to listen to whatever feedback you have.
So good. And I really appreciate your respectful way of approaching that. I think that's, and with anything, if it's nice to get constructive feedback, as long as it doesn't come in the form of, kind of like toxic.
Right, exactly. I mean, you don't have to be rude or mean about it, but
no.
If giving feedback constructively means you're coming from a place of actually caring about something, and the person receiving that may not notice that at first, but they will thank you for it later when they can take a look at what you said and perhaps recognize where you were coming from and make adjustments for the better.
Yes. Okay, that I was kind of afraid to ask that question, but I think it happens. People are disappointed, and maybe they want to take an act, do something about it, and at least, share their feelings, but maybe they didn't know how to approach it. So let's talk about something lighter.
Sure.
As I mentioned at the top of the show, you are a prolific speaker. Of course, you've been in the industry for over 10 years, just doing amazing things. And so I have a distinct feeling that there is people listening right now who would like to speak more, or maybe start their speaking career. And I would love to get your advice on that. Maybe what are kind of two things that people could do to if they want to start their speaking career? Let's ask that first. What are two things people should be doing?
Sure. Well, first of all, you should be attending conferences so that you can sort of get a lay of the land, meet some conference organizers, meet attendees, and see what conferences are all about if you haven't. If you have the dream of speaking at a specific conference, like a dream of mine would be to obviously speak at Engage. It hasn't been realized yet, but it will be realized. Of course, attending that specific conference is really important. You want to see what's being discussed, how it's run, and how you might be beneficial to the people who attend that conference. So first things first, attend conferences, get a lay of the land, meet the organizers, and sort of put yourself out there. Second thing I would say is pick a topic and stick to it. If you're really knowledgeable about social media and you have a lot of tips and tricks that otherwise most people don't know, stick to that and look for opportunities where you can speak as an expert on that to an audience that would appreciate it. So doing a little bit of research on conferences and understanding what would be the best fit for the topics you're most knowledgeable about is really important. I've applied to speak at conferences and been totally rejected. So no matter what kind of knowledge you have or resume, you will probably be declined once or twice in your search to be able to share knowledge with other people. Don't let that get you down. It's probably just not the right conference for what you're trying to talk about, or perhaps the organizer already had someone in place who was knowledgeable about what you were proposing. But first things first, get out there, attend conferences as an attendee, and see what conferences you might be able to offer your expertise.
Okay. What if you've already spoken, maybe it's been local workshops or
Sure.
smaller retreats or things of that nature, and you would like to speak at bigger conferences or bigger events, maybe put on your own event. No, not put on your own event. What if you just want to speak at a new, that's not the right question. What if you want to speak at just, and have more impact? What do you recommend for those folks?
Okay.
Ready? Okay. What if you already have a bit of a speaking career happening? Maybe it's just kind of blooming. Maybe you've spoken at some local workshops or local retreats, maybe some smaller conferences, but you'd like to make more of an impact and speak to larger groups of women. What do you suggest that those ladies do to, get on those types of stages?
Sure. Well, I think first things first, having a presence online that speaks to being a knowledgeable speaker is important. So if you're looking to make a certain arm of your business speaking engagements, then I would set up a website or some type of profile where you could reference your credentials, what you're passionate about, have a headshot there, talk about where you've spoken, what you're knowledgeable about, so that people get to know who you are. Speakers are sort of characters unto themselves. They're people in the industry who sort of supersede their business and are characters. They're well-known figures. And part of getting on a bigger stage is being a well-known figure. And also, too, just perfecting the way that you deliver your talks. Like if you're looking to do a TED Talk or something, which is totally not out of reach for anybody. My friend Paige just did one. She is the founder of the Birthday Party Project. And if you don't know what that is, please run to Google after this and Google the Birthday Party Project. It is a nonprofit organization that gives birthday parties to children who are living in homeless shelters. So really amazing. She just totally speaks from the heart. She's incredible. And she just gave her first TED Talk, which is pretty awesome. So on that kind of stage, Paige is known for who she is as a person, as an individual, as an entrepreneur. Her business is known, but she is almost as recognizable as her business, which is why I think, in part, why that opportunity was able to come to her, aside from her knowledge and her sharing and her beautiful spirit. So if you're looking to transition and be able to speak on larger platforms, you sort of need to make yourself known. And I think having a presence online, whether it's a website about you or your speaking or what you're knowledgeable in, what you're passionate about, a blog, all of that can really help to push you from a local market into more of a national market in speaking.
Oh, so good. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I wonder, kind of as we wrap up here, do you think that in your business, there is a certain, quote, time frame where you are qualified to speak? Or do you think it's more about where you're at in your business and like who you're speaking to? So if you're just trying to do local workshops with, people who are right behind you, or you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
Well, here's the thing. Okay. I sort of go back and forth on that because there are some folks who are speaking about things that I don't feel they're necessarily knowledgeable about based on their experience that I know of and the number of years that they've been working in the industry. However, there are some really sharp, smart, intuitive people who may just sort of be starting out in business,
right,
but have a lot to share, a lot of very valuable information, things I can learn from them. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. I'm not sure how to answer that.
Yeah.
I can tell you that if you're looking to speak because you want to be on a stage and you want to be known as an expert and you sort of want to have a spotlight and have this sort of character made out of you, you're speaking for the wrong reasons. If you want to speak because you're in your heart, you want to encourage other people, you want to share what you know, you want to share the mistakes you've learned, you want to just help other people in your industry, then you're speaking for the right reasons. So regardless of your experience, number of years, all of that, if you speak from the heart and you're doing it because you believe in the topic and you want to share it and help others, then I think that's the most important thing.
Oh, I think that was a great answer. That was
Thanks.
great. No matter what no matter what level you're at, you have to be speaking for the right reasons. Yes, I love that.
Good. I just not that I just made it up, because I truly believe that. This is the first time I was hearing that question, so definitely wasn't rehearsed.
That was great. Well, Candice, it has been just truly my honor and pleasure to have you on the show for 3 episodes. I hope this is not the end of our relationship. I know that these have been some of my most popular episodes. In fact, the mentoring episode is actually the most downloaded episode on this show. So, yes, I thought I would say yes.
Gosh.
Yep, absolutely. And I will send you that little graphic after the show. But yes, it is. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your time. I know you're busy, and I just really appreciate it. And it's very clear that the listeners do too.
Well, I share the same sentiment. So thank you so much for pushing me to be on the show, believing in me as someone to give your readers information. And I love the friendship that we formed. So thank you for having me.
Me too. You're so welcome. Talk to you soon, Candice. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.